and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 187, and today's date is October 12th, 2013, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for Saturday. And we see that the food stamp EBT system is having some problems from states in Michigan, Ohio, Oklahoma, Maine are all having problems accessing EBT at this time. It started around 2 p.m. They're saying it's a system failure. They're saying it's a glitch, and they are working on the problem, but there are many people who depend on this system, and the reason why they depend so much on it is because the unemployment percentages are so high where people cannot find jobs. They are resorting to food stamps and government assistance. And this is why we see, I think the latest stat was 47 million or so people on this system, and you don't have this many people on the system if people have jobs. You have a small percentage of people on the system, but we're seeing a dramatic number of people on the system because the unemployment numbers are completely manipulated and fake, and the real numbers of unemployment, if you go back prior to 1994, before they manipulated all the calculations, is between 23 and 24% at this time. And if you look at this, these numbers actually match those European nations that are having major problems with huge amounts of debt. We're seeing double-digit unemployment out in those nations. Now, we understand that the Republicans and Democrats and the President are all fighting about the debt ceiling, trying to come to some type of agreement. In the end, I believe that the debt ceiling will be raised, but the question is not if, but at what point in time will the debt ceiling be raised? Will it be before the 17th of October or after? Or if it's after, what I reported in my previous episodes about Dr. Paul Craig Roberts saying that the president could enact the executive orders to say this is a national emergency and all powers go to him. This is what I'm concerned about. And at that point, he can raise the debt ceiling and just say, okay, it's going up, and he can do a lot of other things. But the world top bankers are warning of a dire consequence if the U.S. defaults. And if you have to remember, in my previous reports, I said that what they were building up during the summer, the propaganda that they were building up about the economy, is that it was getting better. Real estate was getting better. You saw Obama out there campaigning. You saw the unemployment numbers come down, and the corporate media all out there saying, oh my God, unemployment, it's going down, everything's getting better, we're pulling out of it. The European nations, the propaganda out there, they were all saying the same things, and now they're all blaming it on the shutdown. And we saw the Fed trying to weasel its way in, saying that that's why they didn't taper. They're blaming it on the government, and we can see what is happening now, where the world top bankers are now saying, well, if the United States, defaults, this is going to have catastrophic consequences, and they go on to say that this would be a very rapidly spreading fatal disease across the world, and a default would have a dramatic consequence on the value of the U.S. debt and the dollar, and likely would plunge the world into another recession/depression. And this is what they're using right now, because they understand the economies are not really doing well, and they know this. And they really thought they were going to have, and when I say they, I'm talking about the central bankers, the ones who create the money. They really thought they were going to have this Syria war conflict going full steam by now, which then would drag Iran into this, which then they would be able to blame whatever false flag they created on the system, and they would be able to blame Syria, Iran for this, fell apart. So now they're using Plan B, and they are using this, saying that the government shutdown is going to cause what is coming. But we already know the housing market is fake. We know the stock market is an illusion. We understand the student loan bubble. We understand that all the numbers that the Fed puts out there, the GDP, inflation, unemployment, were all manipulated for the benefit of creating the atmosphere that the economy was getting better. And now they are working on letting everyone know that the economy is about to crash, but not saying it right out, saying it because of all these other factors. And this is what they're trying to do. Because here, in what the World Bankers were saying, we need global growth, he said. We were on the verge of getting it. Please, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. They have been doing this and planning this because they absolutely 100% know that this economy is going to collapse. And we are going to see some major false flags because, again, I say this, the Fed doesn't want to be blamed. The government doesn't want to be blamed. They need to blame someone else for what is coming. Now, Obamacare is a complete nightmare in itself, but John McAfee is out there saying that the Obamacare website has absolutely no safeguards whatsoever to protect Americans who enroll in the health insurance exchanges from hackers, and they will be able to empty your bank account once they hack into the system. Because remember, the system, when you enroll, it gets your social security number, it gets all your information, it understands who you are because you enter so much information into it, and by the time they're done, they will be able to have all your information and get into your accounts and completely empty them. He said also that they could create fake Obamacare exchange websites for a couple $100 that will probably actually work a lot better than what Obama has put out there, and they will be able to trick people into entering the information and just stealing it and going from there. So you can see this entire system that they set up is flawed. Obamacare is not for the people. It was not ready to go live. They pushed it forward. It's another, think about this. Let's just back up for one sec. If they can't even get the website working properly when they went live, with so many glitches, so many pages that still have Latin on it, because usually when you're creating a website, you put filler content in there, and it's usually Latin, it's gibberish, and there's other error messages coming up. If they can't even manage the website, and they went completely over budget, with $650 or so million on this website, how are they going to handle the healthcare system? Think about it. It's the government. They can't. It will be a disaster. That's what is going to happen. Now, the Committee to Protect Journalists has released its first ever special report on freedom of the press in the United States, and it is not that great. The report paints a picture of increasing press restrictions beginning just after 9/11 and culminating with the current administration, which is described as uniquely resistant to accountability to the press. In total, the report and the recommendations show that Obama administration policies around classifications, whistleblower prosecution, and surveillance are threatening investigative journalism. And that is because they do not want the press to go off on their own. They want them to be controlled. And I've said this in my other reports. The central bankers and the government understand that there's a collapse coming, and they need control over certain things. They need control over the creation of money, which they have. They need control over the press, which they have. They need control over the internet and the alternative media, which they don't have at this point. And this is why Obama has created the executive order to take over all communications in a national emergency. And what that means is he'll be able to shut down the internet with no problem. We also understand is that the alternative media is out there and reporting, and it's making it very difficult for them to pull off these false flags. They tried the one in Syria. The alternative media jumped all over this. The American people did not want war. Congress did not want war, and the entire thing just backfired and didn't go anywhere. Now, we understand the central bankers and the U.S. government. They do not want peace. No matter what they say, what they talk about, they're having these peace summits. It's all BS. It's a cover. Because what they have is they're paid mercenaries, and they know how to provoke other countries into starting something. And right now, North Korea came out with fresh warnings because we understand that since Syria, they need to get this war started any way they can. It's either with Iran or back to Syria or North Korea. They don't care because what they'll do is they'll just spread it out and everyone eventually will then be involved. And why do they want to start this war? Because they understand the collapse is coming. They cannot be blamed, and they need to blame this on another country for what is about to happen. Plus, they're hoping, again, they profit quite a bit from war because they take both sides. They don't care who wins or loses. And in the end, what they really want is to reset the system and start this scam all over again where they create money out of thin air and everyone goes back into debt, and this is what they're looking to do. And right now, North Korea has issued fresh warnings of an all-out war, urging the United States to stop military drills and nuclear blackmail. They go on to say U.S. must stop being hostile if it wants peace on both the Korean peninsula and the U.S. mainland. And what's happening is the U.S. and the South Koreans are having naval drills, and North Korea is saying this is a serious military provocation. And if this continues, they vow to bury the American fleet in the sea. And the U.S. government central bankers are hoping they actually do this because this will allow them to start the war, and this is what they're looking to do. Now, Anonymous is out there, and we can just add this to the list of drills and other things happening in the 6-week period, because we understand there is a 1,000 banker cyber attack drill coming up. We understand the truckers are out there now with the veterans, and we'll see how that turns out on Sunday because there's supposed to be a lot of veterans, a lot of bikers. I understand it's raining in Washington, and this is making it a little bit more difficult for people to get out there and do what they want to do. We understand that the power grid drill's coming up, and many other things are happening, and we understand on November 5th now, Anonymous plans November cyber attacks. A firm that tracks cyber threats has warned companies that the activist group Anonymous is planning a series of cyber attacks coming up on this November 5th. And we can see they're just adding to gas to the fire with more and more things happening within this short period of time. And at the same time, we have the Al-Qaeda leader that came out and said that they were going to attack the U.S. is now out there telling, calling all Islamists to wage a popular religious uprising and to strike down all those that oppose us. And we know what this is about. We know that this is propaganda to get a false flag event to occur within a certain period of time, and they're building the propaganda up because they know they need to do something. And we see that there are many drills, many things happening coming up within this certain period of time, and I do believe that this is going to be a multiple event. It will not be just one like Boston bombing bomb that happens. This will happen in many different cities. It might be a nuclear or an explosion with a cyber attack, and now we see that the U.S. is vulnerable to warfare attack. And this goes on to say that the United States remains vulnerable to deadly biological warfare attacks that could kill tens of thousands of people. Several weapons specialists told Congress this Friday that 4 bioweapon experts said that the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats that these terrorists could easily manufacture bacterial weapons that they do not have the ability to stop at this time. And they're saying rogue states like North Korea and Syria are also suspected of having germ weapons and stockpiles. Look how they're building this propaganda. They're bringing Syria back into the picture now with North Korea. Very interesting. Russell warned that the Pentagon is unprepared for an attack using biological weapons and has no preventative medical countermeasures for two of the most deadly agents. Tularemia is one of the most infectious agents known, and when delivered by aerosol in a high dose causes severe respiratory disease that can be fatal, and this could be delivered with missiles flying over above being dispersed. So we can see what they're doing right here, and this goes on to say that North Korea's special forces are a likely means of delivering biological weapons. The North has some 200,000 special forces, some of whom could deliver devastating biological attacks against South, Japan, and the United States. So what they're doing right now is they are building the propaganda, bringing in Syria, bringing in North Korea, and saying that there could be some type of biological attack. And I believe this next false flag event will be a multi-event which will consist of a cyber attack to bring the banks to its knees and the whole financial institutions to its knees, so they can declare a bank holiday. We will see multiple nuclear explosions, which will allow them to blame it on Iran, and then we might even have biological, chemical type of weapons all around the country. And we can see that something is definitely happening, and they keep bringing all of this up. And we have to understand that the Department of Homeland Security is in charge of all this, of civilian biological warfare defense, and the Pentagon deals with the military biowarfare defense. And the Department of Health and Human Services also is responsible for countering the effects of bioweapons. So if we know that DHS is involved in this for the civilian side, we're screwed. Just like Janet Napolitano said, that it's not if or when a cyber attack. They already know that these things are being planned, these things are hot, these things are ready to go, and we have so many things happening from now to the end of the year, and it seems like everything is being laid out perfectly, from the government shutdown to the debt ceiling, with the economy faltering now, and them saying we were on the verge of coming out of this and growing again, which is all propaganda, because we were nowhere, no way, no how, even close. The Fed coming out saying they had to taper because of the government shutdown. It had nothing to do with the government shutdown. They are all doing this to confuse everyone of what is really happening. The economy is declining. It is ready to collapse. They understand this. The U.S. dollar, it is getting harder and harder for the military to keep control and keep the U.S. dollar in all these countries. The United States central bankers are doing this by force right now. And they understand they can't keep this up forever, but they want to control the natural resources of the country, because they think and they believe that when this is all said and done and the wars are done, they are going to start and reset the system. And this is why you see them introducing Common Core. This is why you see they're having education for the young people who are coming through school to rewrite the Bill of Rights. And they're rewriting the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, and they are doing this on purpose to confuse and to brainwash and to teach them a different way, and hopefully eventually get rid of the Constitution, because this is their main problem, the rights of the people, and they understand this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.